President Donald Trump shocked many today with a statement after meeting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The American president stated that Ukraine can and should win this war and reclaim all territories seized by the Russians. And, as Donald Trump himself writes on the social network Truth Social, it might even go further, referring to Russian territory itself. According to Donald Trump, he has thoroughly studied the military and economic situation of Ukraine and Russia and has concluded that right now Ukraine has a great window of opportunity for victory, since the Russian economy is in decline. And what's important is that later, when Trump met with Macron, he was asked to clarify if he really meant that. When asked if Ukraine should reclaim all territories taken by Russia, Trump said yes, let Ukraine take them back, and it's up to the Ukrainians after that. And most importantly, Trump stated that the United States will continue to supply NATO with weapons, which the alliance has the right to transfer to Ukraine. At the same time, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, left the meeting in high spirits and said that this was the most productive meeting with an American president he had ever had. Well, and that's far from all of Donald Trump's answers about supporting Ukraine, and frankly, they are striking. Pleasantly surprising, in a good way. In this episode, we will go over the main statements made by Donald Trump and Zelensky after their meeting in New York, and I'll give you a spoiler right away. The rhetoric of the American president has completely turned upside down. My name is Alexei Pechiy. Today, it's still September 23rd on the calendar. And before we start this episode, I want to remind you that on this YouTube channel, we release several news analysis segments every day about events around the world, so you stay up to date with all the news. So I recommend subscribing to this YouTube channel and clicking the bell so you get notifications about new episodes. Subscribe to my Telegram channel Pechiy News using the link in the video description.
There I post breaking news as soon as it comes in, and sometimes it even appears there faster than on the YouTube channel. I recommend subscribing to the Telegram channel where I post breaking news as it comes in.
The Trump and Zelensky meeting in New York lasted about an hour and was clearly productive. Based on Trump's statements and Zelensky's mood, the two leaders definitely established a good personal connection. Zelensky boasts that Trump definitely trusts him more than Putin. Trump himself says, "Listen, I hoped that my personal relationship with Putin would help end this war quickly, but it turned out that my relationship with Putin meant nothing." This is the first time Trump has shown such disappointment with the Russian dictator. Trump definitely no longer treats Ukraine and Zelensky with the same disregard as before. But I want to start this episode with something else. This is a post by Donald Trump on the social network Truth Social, which came out right after the meeting between Trump and Zelensky, and I'll quote it in full. Trump writes, quote, "Well, this approach by Trump surprised a lot of people. Today I see that everyone is just in shock. After all, this is a sharp change in rhetoric from the American president, who not so long ago, let me remind you, recognized Crimea as Russian and was ready to pressure Kyiv so that Ukraine would simply hand over Donbas to Putin, even those territories that are not occupied by the Russians, in exchange for those same Ukrainian territories. And now, suddenly Donald Trump spoke for the first time about Ukraine's victory, but that's not all. At the very beginning of the meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, Donald Trump stated that the United States and he personally feel, quote, "great respect for the battle that Ukraine is fighting." It's just incredible. Then Zelensky took the floor. The president of Ukraine said, "Thank you for the meeting and your efforts to stop this war, thanks to the Pearl program and NATO countries. Thanks to your support and access to United States weapons, our soldiers reclaimed 360 square kilometers and encircled 1,800 Russian troops. But here, most likely, they were taken prisoner. We support your idea, Mr. President, on how to make some European countries stop buying Russian oil and gas. I had a conversation with Prime Minister Robert Fico of Slovakia. I think they need some alternative options and they will support this idea. I'm not sure if the Hungarians are ready, but everything is in the future." To this, Trump replied that he was personally ready to put pressure on Viktor Orban, the Prime Minister of Hungary, to make him give up Russian gas and promised to do so. What's interesting here is that, in my opinion, Zelensky's and Ukraine's overall position that Europe should give up Russian natural resources really resonated with Donald Trump. Trump justifies not imposing sanctions and tariffs on Russia and its partners by pointing out that Europe still buys Russian energy. Accordingly, why, he says, should he impose sanctions if Europe isn't doing it? Ukraine has long argued that Europe should have stopped using Russian energy even before the full-scale war. And this position, it seems to me, really synchronized the two presidents. But after that, Trump seemed like a completely different person. He suddenly started to look like a president who lives in the real world, who says real things. And not a word about Putin wanting peace, you know? Yes, it's worth noting that this doesn't necessarily mean that Donald Trump's reasonable speeches will be followed by action. Sadly, we know the American president, although his post on the social network Trust Social after meeting with Zelensky shows that Trump is really changing his position. And, these are no longer just empty words. So let's see. But for now, I'll quote Donald Trump. Trump was asked, "Do you think NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter their airspace?" "Yes, I think so," Trump replied. "Do you still trust Putin?" "I'll let you know about that in a month," Trump replied. And then Trump is asked, "Are you ready to provide security guarantees to Ukraine?" To which he replies, "We will talk about that later. I hope we'll be in a position to discuss this a little later, because it's too early to answer that question right now." And I think, probably for the first time here, I agree with Donald Trump. Based on Trump's statement that Ukraine can win and take back all the captured territory. Right now, there's really no point in talking about security guarantees. It's just empty talk. Guarantees can only be discussed when the dictator Putin shows at least some signs of sanity and sits down at the negotiating table. All this talk about security guarantees for Ukraine does more harm, because it has already created the illusion for some people that the war is about to end. But unfortunately, that's not the case. I like Trump's response. To the question, "What progress have you made since your last meeting with Zelensky on August 18 in the White House?" he answered, "The biggest progress is that the Russian economy is in terrible shape right now. It's collapsing." Yes, let me remind you again. Trump is not imposing sanctions against Russia, and obviously is not going to do so while Europe is buying Russian energy resources. He found someone to blame, but don't jump to conclusions. The very fact that Trump admits that Russia can be strangled economically is already a good thing. Now he will put pressure on his partners to do what he himself threatened Russia and its allies with. Later, Trump will, of course, take credit for the victory, but that's another story, and it's not really important for Ukraine. What matters to Ukraine is the result, the effect, not the methods by which this result is achieved. I'll continue Trump's quote. "Honestly, Ukraine is doing a very good job of stopping this very huge army. It's just incredible, it was supposed to be over in 3-4 days. People said it would be very quick. You have to give credit to the Ukrainian soldiers, and everyone there is involved." This offers Russia nothing good. Russia doesn't look too respectable when this has been going on for 3 to 5 years. And the most candid part of Trump's speech, quote, "It seems like this won't end for a very long time." So, Trump realized that it's impossible to end the war quickly. For the first time, he understood and said it publicly. It's impossible because of the unwillingness of the Russian dictator, Putin. There is only the path of coercion, and unfortunately, it can't be quick. There's no magic wand here. Here, it's necessary for the entire West, and not just the West, to really start economically strangling these savages from Russia with sanctions, tariffs, whatever you want. But to strangle, because these unwashed savages really need to be strangled economically so that they live in total poverty. So that, they have nothing to eat. Then maybe these Russian savages will stop. Otherwise, they have no intention of stopping. Then Trump, for the first time, spoke about money for Ukraine in a completely different tone. I won't go on about it here. I'll just give you a quote. Quote, "Joe Biden gave them $350 billion. That's a lot of money and a lot of weapons. We didn't get much out of it. He gave money so that Ukraine could fight, and they proved to be very brave. They are fighting. This war has lasted 3.5 years. People expected things to happen quickly since Russia is a major military power. But Ukraine, they're good fighters, I'll say that. You have to give them credit, they are very brave, they've got guts, well, that's if you translate it literally. And later, when Trump met with Emmanuel Macron, he suddenly stated that his relationship with Putin didn't mean anything. So it's time to move on. The most surprising part is that Trump was again asked about his claim that Ukraine could win and reclaim all territories taken by Russia. Like, weren't you mistaken? Do you really believe that Ukraine should now take back all the lost territories? To that, Trump replied as follows, quote, "That's how I feel. Let Ukraine take back all that land and then we'll see." So, as you can see, Trump's rhetoric has really changed fundamentally. He started saying that yes, Ukraine should win. I'll say it again, the methods by which this will be achieved aren't really that important. The thing is, yes, Trump is not in a hurry to impose sanctions. He's not in a hurry to impose tariffs. But instead he puts pressure on Europe to make Europe do it. Yes, Trump will, of course, take credit for the victory later. Well, whatever, let him take credit. If this really leads to Ukraine's victory in this war and the final utter humiliation of these unthinking, brainwashed and savage Russians. If that's the result, it doesn't matter what methods are used. Let Trump get the Nobel Peace Prize then, and be happy about it. I'll leave it at that. Friends, share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Write in the comments. How did you perceive these statements by Donald Trump? I understand that many people are skeptical about these statements, saying that Trump has already said a lot of things. Write your opinion in the comments, subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now, friends. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone. To be continued.